So good evening and welcome to this live Ask Me Anything About Property Investing with myself, Saj Hussain. So thank you so much for being here and watching this. If you're watching it live on one of the platforms, we're streaming right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram and Twitter. So if you've got any questions, there's anything I can help you with, please put them in the comment section below, and my assistant here, Khalid, will kind of send them across to me to have a look at, and then I'll answer those. Do my very best to try and help you get further, faster in your property investing journey. So right now, I'm going to start off with some questions left over from last week, or ones that have popped up during the week as messages that I've not been able to answer. Focus on those first, and as I said, if you want your question answered, make sure you put it in the comment section. I'll do my very best to get that answered for you. So we run these lives pretty much every week. We've been doing them for a few months at 8:30 each Monday evening. So if you're watching this as a recording and you want to watch, or you want to get your question answered live, make sure you put it in the comment section or ping it into us, and I'll do my very best to answer that. So let's start off with the first question I've got from last week or earlier in the week. That came through as a question. I'm not sure which one it was. So this is on LinkedIn, and it's from Kazai Chowdhury. Is it easy to get a HMO certificate? So I'm assuming, Kazai, what you're talking about is a license, to get a HMO license. And really, it's not a difficult thing to do to be able to get a property license. There's a few different things you need to consider. So for example, if you're renovating a property, you need to make sure it complies with building regs. In certain places, you need planning permission, which will be the case later on this year in Birmingham, which isn't the case right now. And that's Article 4, where that comes in. You need planning to be able to set up your HMOs. And licensing then is an additional thing that you do, which is goes into the licensing department, whichever local authority the property is in. And then really your application states who you are, and they talk about being a fit and proper person. That means you haven't got a criminal record, you haven't got a history with issues with tenants in terms of illegally evicting them or anything like that. And as long as you don't have a criminal record or any of these issues, there should be no issue in terms of granting the license. It could be in a company name as opposed to you as an individual as well. There still needs to be a responsible person. You'll have a person that the license is issued to, and also you can have a property manager as well. So they could be the same person that's both. The same person is the license holder and also the property manager, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So you may already be aware, I own a HMO letting agency as well. So we manage HMOs for other people. So some of the licenses that we have are in the name of the owner of the property, but with us down as the manager of that particular property. Now, in your license application, they'll ask about you, they'll ask about the property, the details of the property. They're particularly interested in terms of the room sizes, the layout, the amenity space, or what facilities you put into place, the fire safety protection that's in place, all the certificates, the gas certificate, the electrical certificate, emergency lighting, fire alarm, PAT testing if the items that you've got in there, the electrical items, are not new, or if it's a brand new one, you won't need a PAT test. These are generally the requirements, particularly around Birmingham and the surrounding local authorities that we tend to work with. And I'm guessing for around the country it's going to be very similar. We've never been refused a license. Unfortunately, in Birmingham, it takes a very long time to get a license approved. It doesn't mean that we can't actually have the property up and running. So as long as we've got the license application in, we can get the property running, and whilst they're processing the application, they'll come back to us if there's anything they're concerned about. But you want to approach your council before you start doing any work on the house, preferably even before you purchase the property, just to make sure you understand the requirements and make sure the property that you're looking at is going to be able to meet those requirements. So for example, a classic mistake people sometimes make is the minimum room sizes. So if the rooms are too small, or you've got a small box room in the house, you think, well, I'll just put a single bed in that. It maybe it's too small and it won't be able to be considered as a usable room. So as I said, we've never been refused a license, but sometimes you can get conditions attached to the license. That means they want you to make certain changes. A window needs to be adjusted for it to be a fire escape. There needs to be another emergency lighting that needs to be put on in a certain part of the building, or something like that. Sometimes you can have these conditions. So I hope that helps, Kaz. Sorry, Kazai, got that right? Yeah. Kaz, sorry. In terms of licensing, relatively straightforward forward process. So next question is from Nemo Mystery, which also on LinkedIn. if I was to sublet someone's apartment and set up a service accommodation, what insurance do you need? So great question, because a lot of people are interested in running service accommodation, short stay, Airbnb, Booking.com, these type of scenarios where they're really good for cash flow in terms of the income that you can generate from those. But when you're using an apartment, there's a few things you have to ensure that are compliant before you can do that. One of the things is the most common mistake, if you like, within blocks of apartments is whether there's freeholder consent, i.e. the company that's responsible for managing that building, is there consent from them to be able to have properties occupied in this particular way? And often the case is that they can't. So the freeholder might object to this happening, so that's something you need to be aware of. There's mortgage conditions. If there's a mortgage on the property, there might be mortgage conditions that state that it should only be let on an AST and not any kind of any other type of letting, i.e. excluding short stay. And with the insurance, you need to make sure your insurance provider is aware that the people that are staying in the property are on short stays rather than traditional ASTs. So you set up the relevant insurance. It's very easy to do, whether it's a rent-to-rent or whether it's a property that you own. And as you mentioned, somebody else's apartment that you want to set up, it's not that difficult to set up the insurance. If you want to contact for the insurance, just ping me a message and I'll connect you with a couple of brokers that are familiar with this and should be able to help you get the insurance set up. And I'm just thinking what else you need to be aware of, also from a planning point of view, what the planning authority view is in terms of what you're doing. It can be a little bit grey, there's different opinions on this, but you want to make sure you do your homework on that. But service accommodation, definitely a great strategy. One I've been growing over the last year in our business, as well as doing very well. The cash flow is absolutely phenomenal compared to what we've generated on a HMO or a single let type of property. But more work. But hey, that's okay, because as long as you've got the systems and processes in place, it means you can scale and build that up. So I hope that helps. So next question I've got from. So these are social media links I'm flashing up here. You can connect with me on any of those. These are the ones we also go live on. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, also on Twitter as well. We're live streaming on there. So if you've got any questions, put them in the comment section. Also next week, we're doing something a little bit different. So as I said, these webinars, these lives, Q&As I've been running on a Monday at 8:30 to help answer your questions in property and really help you get further faster. What I'll be doing next Monday, rather than doing this particular session, I'll be doing a webinar where I'll be doing a presentation, effectively sharing with you what I think are the 3 best cash flow strategies to be using right now, particularly if you're getting started in property. Service accommodation is one of the ones I'll be talking about in more depth as well. You can register for that on this link, which is hussain.com/startup webinar. Register on that and you'll get the details for that. So that's next Monday, and I'll be sharing about the 3 strategies I think are the best ones to be using to get started for building cash flow in this particular market in 2020. So next question I have is also from LinkedIn, from Cameron Salim. Is there a lender you know that would look to do a single portfolio lend right now, mix of resi, buy-to-lets, HMOs, SA properties? That's a great question, but it's not one I have an answer for, I'm afraid, Cameron. It's one really you need to put to a broker, because essentially what you're asking is for a mortgage product that will have a mixed portfolio of properties, a mortgage kind of spread across all of those. There isn't anything I'm aware of, but as I said, I'm not a mortgage broker, so I don't know necessarily all the products that are out there. You speak to a good mortgage broker to see if they can help. Again, if you want to ping me a message, I can connect you with a broker that may be able to explore that for you. My gut feeling is that there isn't going to be these products out there. If you roll back the clock about 12, 15 years, these were much more common at that time, these type of products where you had one mortgage over several properties, but less common right now. So we've got the next question. Next question is from, that's our webinar. So if you haven't already registered, make sure you register for that. It's hussain.com/startup webinar. Have I lost a question somewhere? Okay, we're back on track, I think. So Abayomi Dada from Milton Keynes, this is a question on Facebook in the Property Newbies group. I would get into BRRF. Any advice, tips of what to look out for at property auctions? Or better still, would you recommend property auctions as a way of getting started, getting into this strategy? Many thanks. So the strategy of purchasing, refurbishing, and then refinancing, effectively the principle of it being that you buy a property at a certain price, you spend some money on it to improve it, to increase its value as well, and then you remortgage it based on its new higher value, and you extract out of there a certain amount of money which would cover your initial investment and maybe your initial borrowing into that property, which means you're probably left with a property with very little or none of your own money left in that particular deal, also generating an income. And that's a strategy many people do. It's not one I've used for a while. We tend to do something similar on our HMOs, but it's a little bit different. But essentially, there's two key things you're looking for to make this strategy work. One is you've got to be purchasing at the right price. Are you buying at a low enough price so that you're building your profit from day one? And I'm sure you've heard the term that you make your money when you buy, and that's exactly what that means. That means if you buy at a very good price, you've locked in profit from day one. So what I mean by that, well, let's say the property is worth £100,000 and you pay, say, £80,000. That means you've already locked in £20,000 of profit before you even start. So that's one thing that you need to consider. The second thing is you need to be thinking about what is it that you need to spend on the property to push up its value. So let's say, as we were saying, this example, it's worth £100,000. What is it you need to do to that property to push it past £100,000? Is it a really nice kitchen and bathroom? Is it reconfiguring the layout? Is it creating another bedroom somewhere in the loft, or reconfiguring the existing layout to squeeze another room in there? What is it you need to do? Because quite often in this country, a lot of valuations are based on the number of bedrooms and the location. These are the two factors that quite often determine values. Whereas if you look at many other places around the world, often it's based on square footage. What size is the building and location? Here, often it's really about the number of bedrooms and the location of the property. These are what determine values. Not exclusively, but they have a big impact in terms of what the value of that property is. So these are two things we need to take into consideration before we start. Are we buying at the right price to start with? And what can we do to add value on it to really push up the end value of that property? So then when you come to refinance, it should be nice and simple, nice and straightforward. There are a few factors to take into consideration when you're doing this. It's not just quite as easy as it sounds, although the principle is relatively simple, because you might get a surveyor that objects to a significant hike in the price or value compared to what you paid for it. Sometimes you can get properties in an area where they're very slow, i.e. there's not many property transactions. And again, there could be questions around what the value actually is, the new value that you've created. So you need to have some confidence about what that end number is going to be. That's the important thing. So the other part of your question is about buying at auction. Would you buy at auction? Personally, I don't buy at auction. I've sold at auction a number of times because I think, particularly right now, if I just use Birmingham, other properties through auction are selling very quickly at high prices, a lot of interest, huge amounts of people turning up at the auction. And personally, I think they're overpaying for much of the stock. Doesn't mean you can't get a deal. There are some deals to be had. I just think there's easier ways to buy property than there is auctions right now. Now, there have been times in the property cycle which I would say auctions is the right time to buy. And for me, that time is particularly when, say, a recession is we're in a state of recession. There's a lot of repossessions happening, and what happens then is you pick up some very low-priced stock through auctions. So when we talk about buying at the right price, that means you're able to buy the property at the right price on the offset. If you're going to auction right now, the guide price is say 60,000 on the property, and it sells at 120, and its value is 110. There's actually no opportunity there. So, and I can only give you an example of Birmingham, so I'm not sure where you are in the country. I think you mentioned Milton Keynes. So I don't know what the market is like in Milton Keynes in terms of auctions, but I'm sharing with you my experience of auctions. Have a look at what's happening in the auctions, how many properties percentage-wise are selling based on ones that go into the auction. You can get these figures normally off the auctioneers' websites. What prices are they achieving versus the guide prices that were set out in the catalogue? And again, all this information is available to you. If you're interested in auction, there's a website called EIG, which is a lot of information around auctions. They keep all stats and data there. I think it's David Sanderman that runs it, if I remember correctly. And you can get access to auction data there in terms of what prices properties have achieved, what auctions the property might have been through more than once. So particularly if you're interested in auction, I think it's a useful thing to subscribe to. It's a paid website, but useful. That helps. Next question is from Carl Mendez Spence, which is on the Properties Newbie group on Facebook. Tips in stacking numbers on deal sourcing would be fantastic. So when you're sourcing, and if you're looking to source to sell on, you have to think about, or what I say is start with the end in mind. So what do I mean by that? If you're looking to source properties for somebody, it's being clear what your customer is looking for. What type of things do they want? And then you're going to market to find those, to offer them to them, either as a straightforward fee or possibly packaging it up. What do we mean by packaging it up? So you'll find different definitions of this, but my view is sourcing is just the finding of a potential opportunity. The packaging part is where you oversee the solicitors, the conveyancing process, managing the vendor, helping the buyer through the process, overseeing the mortgage broker. You're effectively managing the whole thing from agreeing the transaction with the vendor to the point where the buyer gets the keys and everyone gets paid. So in my mind, that's what I see as packaging. And when I used to source and package many years ago, that's how I would do that. I'd kind of be responsible for the whole thing and only get paid if that deal goes through successfully. If it fails to go through, because sometimes deals fall out of bed, they never reach completion, and then there was no fee to be paid. Now, when we're sourcing, at that time I was sourcing B&B properties in Birmingham because that was the market. It was the height of a recession, and I used to be falling over these deals all the time. I just couldn't find enough buyers for them. And right now the market's on it's kind of switched over. It's different. Where there's very few good quality discounted deals around, and there's many more people looking for them than there is in terms of number of deals. And remember, the property market moves in cycles, and it's just thinking about where are we on that cycle right now. Talking of cycles and the economics of property and property investing, next month at my monthly property meet, which will be on Tuesday the 7th of March, I believe. 17th even. Tuesday the 17th of March, which is the third Tuesday of each month, we have the meeting in central Birmingham. We'll be talking about specifically around the opportunities that exist in the market right now with the economic changes that are going on, and we'll have the budget a few days beforehand, and also what impact the budget will have for us as property investors, because no doubt there's going to be some things that will be happening in this budget that are going to affect us in terms of what we're doing. So that's what we'll be talking about at next month's property meet. So I think it's a great meeting to get to. It's certainly the largest outside London. We get 100 people there every single month without fail, and it sells out beforehand. So you can book on nice and early on that. The web address is hussain.com/networking. So getting back to Carl's question in terms of making the numbers stack. So it's understanding what people are looking for. So let's say somebody approaches me right now and says, "Hey, Sad, could you source me some property deals right now? I'm quite happy to pay you." I think, fantastic. What is it you're looking for? I'm looking for properties that are 30% below market value. And I'm thinking, in this market right now in Birmingham, it's very unlikely you're going to be finding those kind of deals, because it isn't that market right now. We're not at that point in the property cycle where you'll find such discounts. So it's been about being realistic about what people want, and then your ability to be able to deliver that, because that might be your shopping list of what somebody wants, but actually, can you go and shop and find those particular deals? Some of it will be down to your skill and your ability of the type of thing you're interested in and you want to go out and find. And some of it is determined by what is it that people are looking for, and you're looking for where is that overlap, where is that match that we can look to try and help other people. Where I would probably start is think about what type of thing is it that you want to go and source. So, for example, sometimes people say to me they want to source rent to HMO, rent to service accommodation type of deals. And I'm saying, great, if that's what you want to do, now you've got to make sure you've got a market that wants those. And when we talk about making a number stack, it's understanding what your buyer's requirements are, what they're looking for to make the number stack for them. So for instance, somebody might be doing rent to rent and thinking, look, as long as I'm making at least £500 profit per month from a rent to HMO, I'm happy. That might be what they're looking for. That's the outcome they're looking for from buying a sourced deal. It might also be, I've got sourcing fees to pay, setup costs to pay, and as long as I can earn that money back within a year, I'm quite happy. It might be the rent-to-rent deal has to have a term of at least 3 or 5 years, for example, that they're looking for. Now you've got criteria of what it is that people actually want. You now need to make sure that you can deliver on that. You can find properties that are generating at least £500 a month for them that you can have on a 3 or 5 year arrangement, whatever it might be. As long as you can do that, now you've got a ready-made market that you can sell those deals on. So rather than you creating what you think the numbers are, I would go to your potential market and ask them, what is it they're looking for, and what's their criteria, and for you to think about, is that something you're able to find, you're able to deliver, and is that what you want to do? So for instance, let's say people are looking for BMV discounted properties with deep discounts. It's often about negotiating with vendors. Is that something you're comfortable doing? Does that come natural to you, sitting with vendors and being able to negotiate deals with them? If it isn't, then it might not be the right thing. It might be you go and talk to agents. So I hope this makes sense about these collective things together, helping you work out which is going to be the right type of deals for you to find and for the market that you want to take them to. So how are we doing for time? What other questions? We've got a few more minutes. Let me see if I can pick up a few more questions. I think these are ones that have just come through. Oh, these ones I think I came through earlier. I didn't have on screen. These are from Gov. So Gov had a few questions. I think Hal's just summarising for me. So I'm just going to whiz through what he's asking. Where to find big money investors and how to get these investors to trust you. In your opinion, you focus solely in Birmingham and doing extremely well. That's more of a statement than a question. But let's focus on finding money. Ultimately, you mentioned about how to get people to trust you. I think that's absolutely key. People need to get to know you, like you, and trust you before they're going to be doing business with you. Whether they think about this on a conscious level or whether subconsciously you need to allow people to go through this process, it's irrelevant. The point is, this is what needs to happen for people to be able to do business with you. If you think about the last time you made any kind of purchase of any significant value, hundreds of pounds or thousands of pounds, and the person you were interacting with, engaging with to be able to do this transaction, if you just think about that for a moment, what that experience was like. If it was somebody you didn't like and you didn't trust, it was probably unlikely that you went on and did that transaction. You probably had to have a relatively good feeling that this is somebody I want to do business with. Now, even if it's virtual, let's say you bought, a £1,000 TV off an online website. Now, let's say you went to Amazon rather than some unheard of website that had the TV a little bit cheaper. Why did you go to Amazon? Because you know it. You may or may not like it, but you certainly trusted it. Now, I'm not saying Amazon's the only website you can go to, but the point I'm trying to make is these things need to happen at a subconscious level for the transaction to work. And it's no different when it comes to raising money from people. When you're speaking to people about investing in you, one of the reasons I kind of share this content and help other people, it means I love kind of helping and supporting people and kind of seeing them grow. But ultimately also means that people come to me with deals. When we talk about sourcing, they might want to work with me. They might want to fund deals for me. They bring investment for projects that I'm doing. So right now, I've got 7 refurb projects that I'm running right now in Birmingham, pushing them through before the Article 4 change happens in June. Sometimes we bring investors. So what am I doing? I'm sharing knowledge. I'm allowing people to see my life, what I do, what I'm up to. I hold a monthly meeting. And ultimately, it allows people to get to know me, like me, and trust me, so in order that we might do business. It doesn't mean everybody I meet will do business with me, but I'm making it easy for people. In the same way, you need to think about with your investors, what is it you're doing to make it easy for them to be able to work with you? And if they can get to know you, like you, and trust you, it means you're making it so much easier for them to do business. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is you share knowledge and experience. So Gov, right now, I know you've got a great Facebook group for people just starting out in property, and that is definitely a big tick in the box in allowing people to get to know you a little bit, and where you're sharing your knowledge and your experience, even if you're brand new, even if you're a property that you've not done your first deal. So just before this session, I had a private group coaching call with my mentees, and one of the questions on there is one of the guys just getting started with their first deal. It's a case of, what do I share? How do I share? And they've not done a deal right now, and thinking, how can I build credibility, say, online? Well, you could be at a property doing a viewing, and you can do a video or around that property and just share that online, that this is a property I've been to see, this is what the numbers look like, and this is why I think it's a good deal, or this is why I think it isn't a good deal, and this is why I think it's going to work, or this is why I don't think it's going to work. And what you're doing is just sharing knowledge and experience. You're not claiming, hey, I'm an expert, I know all this stuff. You're just sharing what you're able to share. I have a huge amount of knowledge and experience when it comes to property and property investing. I've been doing it quite a few years. I don't claim to know everything there's to know about property. I'm always learning myself. But hey, because I have a significant amount of knowledge and experience, I can help so many other people. So it doesn't matter where you are on your journey. Even if you're right at the beginning and you're starting out, you can still help other people. And by doing that and sharing openly, it makes it so much easier for people to approach you to want to invest with you. So the other part of your question is about raising large amounts of money, the bigger investors. Ultimately, even if someone's got a significant amount of funds to invest you, it's very likely, and in my experience, they'll test working with you first with a much smaller amount. Even if it's millions of pounds they're looking to invest, they'll start with a significantly smaller figure just to see what is the experience like in working with you. They're not likely to meet you and say, so tell me, how much money do you need? I'll just write that check for you right now. How many zeros was it on the end of that? No, that doesn't happen. They'll want to work with you to test you, see if that works well. Are you doing what you said you were going to do? And is it delivering the results that you said it was going to do, that particular project? Then they're likely to try and then they're more likely to increase the investment that they have with you to do bigger deals. So it's really about just sharing what you're doing and sharing the possibility of growth. Because let's say somebody's got a significant amount of money, they may not be interested in making £100, £150 a month on a deal with you. They're probably looking about, how can we scale this? So when you're sharing your content, be thinking about that. How is this scalable? Why would somebody with significant funds be interested in this type of transaction? And that's what will appeal to those people and initiate those conversations with you. So hopefully you're finding this useful. Have we got any other questions? Can we squeeze another one in before we finish? If you haven't already, make sure you book onto the webinar. So we've got a question on LinkedIn. Edgaras Bobrovas, my sincere apologies in pronunciation. I am terrible. How do I approach a letting agent about a rent-to-service accommodation? I think this is where many people fall over in terms of trying to do this particular strategy. What they do is they call an agent up and then they overload them with information about what they're trying to do. The kind of things that I would start with in a conversation is either you filter the property by working out, is that type of property you want, it's in the right location, it's got the right floor plan for what you're looking for, and then you're having a conversation around, for example, whether the landlord would be open to a corporate let. Now, just a quick caveat, you're not necessarily looking to do a corporate let, but a letting agent will understand the concept of what you're talking about, i.e. you will not be the person living at the property, it will be somebody else living at the property, and that you just want to start the conversation around there. The other thing you might want to do, particularly with the smaller independent agents, is to go out and view as many people or many properties as you can. Because if you're going out, you're spending time with the agents, what you're able to do is build some rapport with them, build some understanding about what you're doing. Now, maybe if one property doesn't quite work, it doesn't quite fit the bill, you might ask them about other properties that they've got that might be suitable for this type of thing. So I think the important thing is that to start the conversation off, you might be asking about whether they do a corporate let on this particular property or would the landlord be open to it. If the answer is no, I would ask, okay, so just so I understand, what is it about corporate let that doesn't quite work for this landlord? Or even if you get a kind of negative response for that, then I'd ask, what other properties do you have available right now where a landlord would consider a corporate let? So don't just take the first no, keep pushing the boundaries to see if there's something else, because what you're trying to do is understand, is the letting agent giving you some resistance there, or is it simply a case of this landlord that they're referring to doesn't want the property to be used in any other way than just a normal family in there. So I hope that helps. I'm conscious of time. Thank you so much for giving up your time for being here. As I said, next Monday, we're going to do something a little bit different. Make sure you register for the webinar, sajhussain.com/startup webinar, where I'll be focusing on the 3 strategies I think are absolutely important if you're getting started in property, the best way to build a cash flow in this market right now. So thank you once again for being here. If you've got any questions that you want answered, put them in the comment section. Even after the this live stream, we'll pick them up and answer them in the next live that we do early, just as I did earlier in the session today, and then pick up any ones that come through. So make sure you put your comments in, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter, and I'll do my very best to answer those questions to help you get further, faster in your property investing journey. Thank you so much.